Hello. Okay, I guess it's working. It took a little bit to get going. So, hello everyone. Hey, it's supposed to be in the 60s overnight here. And back to triple digits tomorrow. Love Texas. Love it. I think I'll just stay up all night and then sleep all day tomorrow while it's hot. All right, everyone. Hello. We're going to give everyone a couple seconds to join. And I'm going to sit here. I just got here, so I'm still discombobulated. Like, that's different than normal. That's oh, these little stickies. We really try to get away from stickies on our desks and stuff, but there's just some things that, like, you gotta have them. Those reminders that you need to do. Oh yeah, turning volume up, yeah, that might help. Though depending, I mean, my voice goes pretty far. You popped on into Georgetown. That's pretty funny. Okay. Hello. So thank you everyone. Up until I'd say about 2 o'clock, I read everyone's comments on today's post. I haven't seen the one since then. But thanks to everyone that commented so far, and keep the comments coming. It really seems like a lot of you got your start sewing clothes, which I guess technically I did too back in high school, because I surely didn't do quilting in home ec. I did have home ec in high school. My girls, when they went through high school, home ec was not a thing. And I think some of the places it's actually come back again. And I know Michael does like pieces and parts that like could have been home ec, part of our home ec class, but like they have a whole semester, Money Matters. It's actually Dave Ramsey's. Is that the one that does the pay cash for everything? I think that's the one they're doing, but it's better. I mean, it's good for him to have some sort of something, but they kind of do pieces and parts. They don't have the sewing, or cooking, but there are some schools that have that stuff too, because there's a lot of kids not going to 4-year college anymore, which is, you should do kind of what's good for you. So I did not go to 4-year. Well, I went to 4-year college. I did not graduate from 4-year college. It was not my thing. I have trouble concentrating. You guys see that at all in me? Squirrel anytime lately? So yeah, trying to study and stuff. Because I went through high school. I didn't study. When I was studying for finals, I'd sit in my bed with my big book, because then we had big books. Now all their books are on the phone. Well, not the phone. They can't use the phone at school anymore. On their computer or whatever. And I'd sit with another book, a novel, sitting in my book, studying. Yeah, Mom. I don't know if you've heard that story yet, but yeah, that was my studying. I was reading. I love to read. I read and read and read, just not my school books. And now I listen to books on tape. So couple housekeeping, or one housekeeping item really, I think. First, we are doing really great we're making a couple of calls right now. We have a few of the 41 quilts still out that we got the quilt tops from Victoria from Fabric Friends. And we'd like to take them next week down to them, because they want to deliver them on the 20th of September, so we want to get them to them. So we're making a couple of calls to get those last couple in. So thank you for everyone that has helped with that. In the meantime, I do have 2 more Fabric Friend ones that need binding. So if there's anybody out there that can do a quick binding by this weekend or very beginning of next week, they're both not humongous. One of them I'm looking at is probably like throwish size. The other one's more like twins, in between a twin and a full. But they've got, their fabric. They just need the binding put on. If anybody can do that, I've got 2 of those, more of those for Fabric Friends that need to be done. And then I've got 3 more tops that we got later that now have backings and batting that we've donated, that if there's any long armors out there that can do 1 or 2 more, I've got a few more, and we'll still take tops and stuff. The need is still very great. Oh my gosh, I just lost his name. It starts with a D. From Austin Disaster Relief Network came by last week while I was out and took another 50-ish. But they'll go through those pretty quickly, and we've got a few here. But if you've got tops you want to donate or quilts you want to donate, keep them coming. I'm hoping to look, now that Sam and I have more time to actually plan. This last few weeks, actually few months, has been a little bit on us, and you'll hear about that more in a minute. But I'd like to do something because, you know, when the flood happens in July, at the beginning of July, there was so much that was sent their way, but I know they've got to have needs now again. So I want to do something in September where we actually collect like food or school supplies or both or all or what they need, sheets or whatever. So we'll keep an eye out for that. We'll talk about that once we figure out what needs are in the different areas, so that we can continue helping, because it's not a sprint, it's definitely a marathon for all the people affected. So yes, if you can just find a way to mail the tops to our shop, that would be great. If you're sending USPS and it's in a smaller box, that's not a problem because they'll put it in the lockbox. If it's in a bigger box, please send either UPS or FedEx, and you'll find UPS is about, especially if you do ground savers, about the same cost as USPS. USPS likes to just leave stuff, if it's bigger, just in our shopping center, and that's not a great idea at this point. Just outside if we're not here, and we're not here 24/7. So yes, and our address, I don't know if Sam's on. We can get you, if you send an email to info@poppyquiltandsew.com, we will send you back the address to send it to, or you can look on our website. I think the address should be there, but I don't actually know that, so it really should be, but who knows. Okay, all right, Ida, thank you. All right, Kathy, perfect. So that's kind of the housekeeping I have. So today we posted about like what got you going in sewing, and we'll see if I can get through this. So 2 weeks ago, so I try to keep my lives like happy and, you know, type of thing. This one is not, it's still happy, but it's not happy. 2 weeks ago, my father passed away. So if you've had interactions with Sam and I the last couple weeks and you thought something was a little off, it is, and it will be for a little bit. This morning was his funeral, so thank you, Chris. So we had that, and as I was thinking about it, I did a live 2 days after he passed, and it was the hardest live I think I've ever done, because I just put a smile on my face and, you know, sold stuff like it mattered, and it really didn't. But you guys are used to me being here and that. So I was like, well, what can I do today? Because I knew today there was no way I could do that. And I'm like, you know what? My dad is a huge part of who I am and why I am. And so I wanted to come on here and tell you a little bit about my history. Unless you've been in my t-shirt class or you've been around me long enough, you don't even know how I became a quilt shop owner. I did not start off as a quilt shop owner. I did not start off as an entrepreneur. I started off as a temp worker at Dell Incorporated. And then I worked my way up through Dell, and I was there for a really long time. And then I took a package about, I always forget the numbers, I think it was 19 years in. And I took a package, and I needed something to do at that point, after I took a month or two off. And I had already been doing the 2 Cool t-shirt quilt method, and I did, sorry, I'll stop trying to say I already did the 2 Cool. I did a couple a year because I really liked the method. I'd taken actually class at Poppy's probably 2010-ish, and I didn't like it. I had to iron stuff. So then I went looking for a method where I didn't have to iron stabilizer on the back of t-shirts. And I found Andrea's method, and I started making them from her book and her templates. And I would make a couple a year for charity. And I would, so anyways, I'd seen, because I was on her mailing list, so I saw where she was looking for franchises. So I reached out to her, and that was in 2014. And I had not, I'd maybe, I don't know that I'd even, yeah, I'd completed a few quilts by then, and I'd completed probably a handful, maybe 6 t-shirt quilts for our local soccer organization. They would raffle them off. Sorry, I'm squirreling a little bit. And so I called her and I said, hey, I saw you were looking for franchises last year. Are you still looking? I'm interested, because I wanted to work at home. Michael was very young at that point, but he was in school, so that way I could be home when he got home and that kind of stuff. And she said, yeah, sure. So we get to talking, and she's like, oh, you're in Texas. And I was like, what? She goes, Texas is way too big. You're gonna be way overwhelmed. There's no way you could handle Texas, starting off new in that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we're just talking about our kids and whatever. And then I was like, you know what? My girls played soccer at the time, 2014. So sorry, they were in college at the time, but they had played competitive soccer. And competitive soccer, Texas is actually 2 states. There's North Texas and South Texas. I said, well, there's North Texas and South Texas. What if I just started with South Texas? So that's how I got my start in 2014 with doing 2 cool t-shirt quilts out of my house. And I went up to Michigan. I got formal training. So if you've seen the Texas flag t-shirt quilt hanging in our classroom, or you've seen the red, white, and blue one that has the pieced borders, I made those up in Michigan so that she could see that I could actually make them and quilt them, and they were satisfactory to her and all of that. And then I started just making t-shirt quilts, and I had they just would ship. I mean, I got overwhelmed really fast with just South Texas. And so got overwhelmed, and my dad heard I was overwhelmed, and my dad was actually my first employee, and he at that time was still working, and he would come after work and he would sit there and cut the t-shirts for me, so that would take that off my plate so I could just do the rest of the process. So he did that. I think he retired shortly after that. I don't know the timelines, but he retired, and so then he would do it more for me. And so my dad and I would do it, and then a little bit after that I hired actually someone here from Poppy's to come that lived closer to me at the time where I lived, and she couldn't get enough hours here at Poppy's to make sense for her to drive all the way over here. So she came and started sewing for me. So we were doing all this out of my house. And then I started teaching the 2 Cool class at Poppy's when Anita owned it. And at some point in, I guess, 2016, late 2016, noticed that, maybe it was early 2017, noticed that things in this quilt store didn't seem the same. There wasn't new fabrics coming in. It just looked empty. And so I asked her what was going on, and she was like, well, my lease is up at the end of the year, and I'm just going to retire at that point. And so at that point, I talked to her, and I was like, well, what if someone wanted to buy it? And she's like, oh, nobody wants to buy a quilt store. I said, well, maybe I do, because what I was finding with doing the t-shirts out of my house is that we use Kona fabric and Minky fabric for the back, but with Kona, especially the grays, you have to use from the same bolt, or you can't use those fabrics. And so I would use like 12 yards off of a bolt, but then I'd have like 3 yards left over. Well, that's not big enough for a quilt back. But what am I going to do with a whole bunch of 3-yard pieces of that? So it was like, this was a perfect marriage, right? I'd come, I'd have fun. I'd own a quilt store. I get to sew all the time. I get to keep doing my embroidery business, because I was doing that on the side too. I was doing cutting with Silhouette. If you guys know what that is, it's similar to a Cricut. You know, I was doing all of those like little cups before they started doing the dipping and stuff. I wasn't doing it when that got into, though I would have been doing that if it had been. I would have learned and I would have done it, because that would have been fun. But and so Anita and I obviously worked it out, and in October of 2017 I purchased Poppy's from Anita and her husband, and brought the t-shirt quilt here, brought the long arm here. It was really nice, because at that time, if you guys that are local and you come in the store and you know, like, there's hardly ever that there's just like one person in the store, but a lot of time back then there was just one person in the store, if anyone. And so you'd have staff standing there doing nothing, and that's really hard to make ends meet. And so it was really nice because we could cross train, and Jean came on right as I started owning the store. And most of you that are newer to us probably may have not even met Jean. Jean's my lead long armor. And so she's in the long arm suite, so she's not in the store as much. But she could cross train, I could cross train, so we could be sitting there working on a t-shirt quilt, and a customer walks in, we could go help them, and then we could go back to doing that. And it was a good way to like make everything go round and pay the bills and get things done and paid for, and then just grow from there. And those of you that are here, I mean, know more than those of you that are online how much we've grown over the past 7 years. It'll be 8 years in October. We always do our anniversary. This is going to confuse everyone because we always do our anniversary in December. December is like we didn't get our act together. Because it was just me. Sam was in school at the time still. We didn't get our act together for our grand opening until December, and so we've just always used that as our anniversary week is in December. And yes, okay, so. My point is, though, I wanted to come on today because I thought there was no better way to pay tribute to my dad than to tell you kind of how he made me who I am. And he had 3 girls. He still has 3 girls. We are very strong women. We don't take crap because my dad wouldn't let us. But we're all very compassionate, and we always are looking for ways to help others out and stuff because that was part of how we were raised. And he always instilled in us, 1, don't quit, never quit. There was a time right before COVID, I was this close to closing the quilt store. Don't quit. And don't, and work hard. And those of you that know me know how hard Sam and I work. But it's fulfilling to me. It gives me a sense of purpose. I had an interview yesterday with the Community Impact, a reporter from Community Impact, which will be in the Georgetown October issue. So Poppies will be featured there and online. So when it hits the online, we'll share it because it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what I said. Who knows what I said? But the thing that I just kept coming back to was the community that we've built here. And my dad was a huge part of that community and still is and still will be and will live on through us. And his chocolate chip cookies were legendary. Ask the employees that were here when he used to bring them once a month or whatever. And he was a big part of, Jean was telling me some stories last night because he was an early riser. I am not, you guys should know that by now. And he and Jean are, and so they would be in early, and so they would chat a lot those early mornings while he was cutting t-shirts and she was quilting. And he's a huge part of how successful this business is, because without him having stepped in at that very beginning, I don't know that I would have been able to continue on. I might have given up and gone to do something else. I'd like to talk about the COVID a little bit. I just saw that. I'm not looking at your comments, you guys. I will look at them later. If I start looking at them, I'll start crying. So I'd love to talk about COVID though. I just saw that as I glanced over. So the story around COVID, and this just goes to show you like what we do for our family and our parents and stuff. And I don't think anyone besides Sam knows this. My mom and my sisters might. I don't know that I even ever told them, but we closed Poppies, I think 5 days before our county shut everyone down. I believe it was a Saturday night that she and I made the decision. And the biggest reason I made the decision is because I knew that my mom would walk through that door the next day, and I didn't know what this weird thing was out. Why I would have ever thought that we were needed to close. And you guys know me, we hardly even close for holidays. Like, I don't close my shop. We have to rearrange things. We do it at night on early Sunday mornings. Like, we don't close the shop. But it came down to that I didn't want my mom walking through the door. And then when I thought about it, I was like, well, if that's my mom, I don't want her mom. I don't want her daughter. I don't want her son walking through the door and catching COVID in my store. Because I knew that if the COVID went back to my dad at that time, that he was one of those ones that, and this was before we even knew like how or why or whatever, I knew he wouldn't survive it. And so like I shut down my store early because, and then had very generous customers. We did COVID cash. You guys remember that? To help pay the employees, and we kept paying. We paid our employees their average weekly amount. During the whole time. Sam and I were the only one in the store because we were in the same household, and we ran stuff out. We brought wagons full out to the curb until about 6 weeks into it, we could no longer, Sam and I couldn't do it anymore. Like it was too much. Plus it was starting to get hotter because it was by then the end of May, middle of May, whatever it was. And we understood COVID a little bit more. And so then we all masked, and we would have one other employee with us and to help us get through and get you guys the fabric you needed for masks. We all know that most of that did not go to masks. But it kept you guys with something to do at home and all of that. But anyways, so that's kind of the history of Poppies and me. And this is the last quilt I made for my father. So my mom let me borrow it to bring it here. He actually, he went through cancer treatments. And that's why I made this one for him. And he actually got cleared for cancer, but I think just the drugs and stuff killed his body. So yeah, so that's all. It did go to mask. Yes, it did. Hundreds of yards of poppy, more than that, because you guys, like back in COVID, we did some things where you guys would like just add $10 onto your order, and then we would donate, you know, $10 or more worth of fabric to Williamson County Brocade. And then we, because of the t-shirt quilts, had a ton of navy and black Kona cotton, which a lot of the first responders and those kind of things needed. So a lot of that went to them because they couldn't have the funny, I mean, they were being kind of strict for some reason. They needed to have plain masks, not, and blue or black was very specific, not, so there, yes, a lot of poppies. It actually helped clear out some older fabric, because who cared what, besides those, who cared what masks fabric was? And so we were able to clear out some of the older fabrics and more bang for the buck to give it to the Williamson County Mask Brigade for those that were making. Yes. Yeah, Carrie, we met in parking lots during COVID to give a fabric and stuff. So COVID cash. Yes. Lori, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think we still have the list of COVID cash somewhere. If someone were to walk in, we could maybe dig it up and see if you still have, if it's been signed off or not. But yeah, that was, we just asked for cash donations. Like, the trust you guys put in us, like, was amazing. We asked for online purchases of nothing, basically. Like, you spent $35, and what I told you and happened is that you would get $50 in return when I decided we were okay, that the store was going to be okay, it could make the lease payments, it could make the employee payments, and then we opened it up, and so you got return on your money. But to trust that the store was still going to be here when we got through COVID, you guys, I guess, maybe just didn't think it through or something, but you just trusted that we would still be here and that we would make good on those donations. They weren't donations, they were future. They weren't gift cards either, but they were future. So, but yeah. Oh, another COVID fun story is, I totally forgot. Like I should have made a list, but every time I wanted to make a list, I was like, I can't make a list. So my dad, like I told you, my dad has always, my dad had a heart attack at 35 and triple bypass at 40. So he's always had where, you know, there's always been that, you know, how is he going to be type of thing. So COVID was not going to be good. And he never got COVID that we know of. Knock on wood. My mom has not had it either. Amazing, because they actually listened. I had a really frank conversation. It was like the changing of the guard with my dad, just into it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. He's like, I can just go to the hospital. No, people aren't making it out of the hospital. You will not make it out of the hospital. Do not leave your house. So he did. He did really good with that. I was very proud of him, because he is not one to sit at home and do nothing. And well, he could always plan his trains. So he's a big HO guy, HO trains. Anyways, so in COVID, he was still cutting shirts for us. And when at first we didn't know what it was, right? Was it contact? Was it airborne? Was it what? So we would receive in the packages for the t-shirt quilts, we would receive in the boxes, and I or my husband would deliver them to their house. They would open the garage, we would stick them in their garage, and then he would leave them for days so that like all the germs could be gone from them before he would ever like open them and then start cutting them. So it's like 1 to 2 weeks from when it got shipped before he touched them, but it's like those little things. We're all going to have those stories coming out of, we'll have them forever for COVID, the things that stand out in your mind of things that we did. Some of the pictures, we had a visitation last night, and some of the pictures were those birthdays where literally they were at the curb, the birthday parties where they were at the curb, and we were up near the house, and for, you know, because you still wanted your kids to have birthdays and family and all of that type of thing. Yes, I started lives, so I wouldn't even be talking to you if I hadn't started lives, because the lives helped us get through that time as well. And it continues to be, we do things differently than we used to. We used to stick, I don't even know how we fit 30 women in what used to be our classroom before COVID, but we did every Friday, not every Friday, once a month, the first Friday of the month, the beginning of sampler. Everyone would come in. We would do, instead of me showing you on live what's new, I would show everybody what was new, try to get them to buy some stuff besides their free sampler, and we would fit 30 women in that smaller classroom. It's insane to me. We just don't do that. So now this is my way, and instead of just doing it once a month, I do it 4 or 5 times a month, where I am, you know, coming and showing you what's new so that you guys kind of know what's here, so that when you have a new project come along, that you're like, oh, I saw that on the live. Oh, that would work perfect for this person or whatnot. So yes. I know. I watched one of those first lives when Facebook went to pull all of our lives. Sam started going through them and pulling down some of them just for nostalgia reasons. Holy crap, they were horrible. They were really, really bad. I don't ever go back and watch myself live now. I still don't. I can't. I would never be able to get back on live again. I was never a public speaker. But I had a mortgage to pay. I had a lease to pay. I had a family to feed, and this is what was instilled in me growing up. You find a way to get it done and you do it. And that's what we do. And so, yes. Yeah, they're very funny to watch. So you guys keep commenting. I'd love to hear more of your why you got started in sewing. So that's on our Facebook page. We put a post today, so keep telling us your stories. A lot of us got started sewing clothes and then found quilting later. A few actually quilting under, Chris, I think you were under while people were hand on the quilting loom hand. I don't have that. My grandmother did quilt. My mother did not until I owned a quilt store, and she swore she wasn't going to. But now she does. She pieces quilts, and she does quilt too. And she, but my grandmother, I have hand sewn blocks from her and her friends, because we're not sure that they were actually all her, because they did community swaps. That at some point I need to find those again and actually put them into a quilt and make a quilt out of them. I just thought of those the other morning, that I should find them and make something of them. But yes, oh yeah, and several of you commented on that post that it was my fault that you started, but the community and the camaraderie, and like, I hate calling you guys my customers. Like, every time I go to say a customer, I hate that word. Like, I feel like you guys are all so much more than a customer to us. But I don't know what else to do. That's awesome. Chris said her grandfather made that frame, and she gifted it to a pal who still uses it. Yes. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you for joining me and listening to me. We will be back on next week with our regular lives. But I just, this is very therapeutic. So thank you for listening. And I hope you learned a little something about me today. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye, y'all.